Hello again, my name is Dr. Bill Johnson. I'd like to welcome you all to another edition of Exploring Our Schools. As we have done many times in the past, we have focused on our theatrical productions here at Southside High School, and this show is no exception. We're going to really focus on just a wonderful opportunity for kids during the fall semester. And this year we're going to do a drama called
You Can't
You
Take
Can't
It
Take It With You. So that young lady to my left who just spoke up is Pam Seidemann. She's an English teacher, but also both, I think you're producer and director.
Yeah, director. I have to give Russ Reed the credit as producer, although I'd like to say that I am. No, he does a lot. We're a great team.
Yes, you are, as a matter of fact. We also have two of our seniors who are very much involved in this production. Leanna Genovese, thank you very much for being here, and Chris Barker, thank you. I'm going to start with you and just talk a little bit about something actually before the show we were chatting about, which is, where did this show come from? Why this? Why now?
Thank you for asking that. I love this show. I teach it sometimes in the theater arts classes. It is a show from 1936, so you would think maybe it's kind of clunky and archaic and it doesn't work anymore, but it really still, the themes are still really, really relevant for today. And it's a show that's been produced more, I think, often than any other show in high schools. It's a popular show because it's got a large cast, a lot of eccentric characters that are really fun to play, allows for comedy. And the main theme of the play is really that while there might be a lot of pressures in the world to work for money, you should really, in the end, do what you love. And I think that that's something that I think both high school students but adults can relate to never forget what interested you in the first place, to follow your passions and your hobbies and keep them alive in your life.
We hear that said so many times about teachers.
Absolutely.
Who actually pursue their passion in life.
That's right.
Right. So, and you have done just that.
Yeah, I have. I found a way to marry, love of teaching and love of theater. So that's I can't think of a better place for me to be. But I also love to share that with the students and see them find their passions in whatever form of theater they do, which they
Well, that's a great segue,
yeah.
because now we can turn to them and ask, all right, tell me a little bit about, ladies first. Why don't we start? Okay. Right, I know you looked at him with the, so how'd you get involved in this?
Well, I've been acting and doing theater since I was very young. I do an outside theater guild in Lynbrook, but I don't know, I've been auditioning for these shows since freshman year. I did most of my shows in middle school, and just acting and theater class has always been something really important to me. It just makes my day so much better, gives me a reason to look forward to, I'm going to get to go to school and go to rehearsal after. But yeah, one of the main reasons I came to Southside was because I knew we had such an extensive and incredible theater program along with a theater class. So yeah, I just I've always been involved with that way, and it's really exciting. I'm very excited. Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily define you, but it gets to the word that she used is passion. You feel the same way that she does?
I do. I think being able to do something inside of school that you have a passion for is really, it's just really gratifying, and just a great way to marry, as you said, just your academic life along with something you're very passionate about. Because a really common theme with this show is just different allusions to outside things. There's a lot of historical allusions, and there's a lot of credit to the time period, and just it's really interesting that I get to go and do this show after school. We're learning about Trotsky and the Russian Revolution, and then meanwhile, first period history this morning, we learned about Trotsky, the Russian Revolution. I just thought,
because he's referenced in the play
many times. Yeah.
How about you, Chris?
I got involved, I guess, in middle school, and just a lot of my friends were involved in the production, but I wasn't one of the kids that wanted to act. I wanted to be behind the scenes, doing technical, just being in the technical aspects of the show, and I just wanted to be with them and just have a good time, and it's also what I want to sort of focus on for the future as well.
It's so interesting. I mean, sometimes, we usually think of team in athletics, but we don't understand sometimes is how critical this team right here, between the director, the person who is actually working behind the scenes, and the actors on stage, It is a team effort. And unless all the little parts work together, the production becomes guts unglued. So don't ever apologize for that at all. I mean, that's a critical part of what happens on that stage.
And
So-
you also been, I mean, the number of things that the stage manager is responsible for. You can imagine what he was doing yesterday, trying
my
to make,
gosh.
you know, there's moments where there's supposed to be fireworks and fire on stage, but of course we can have to do that safely. So you've used your sort of creativity and a little bit of engineering to sort of rig a contraption that's going to look like it has fire on stage. So, so it's an amazing number of skills that Chris brings to the table as the stage manager that we couldn't do without.
Well, he knows every part, and he's got to cue everybody, right?
Yes.
So it's like, oh my God, if something goes wrong, is he the one to blame?
Absolutely, yeah.
Right.
It's all your fault.
Yeah. So tell me, you know, what's interesting is that it's somewhat of a period piece, and comedy very often is rooted in the present. But here you have a play that was put on in the 1930s that still seems to be somewhat relevant to today. I mean, do you feel that way?
I just think that there's very common themes that just have existed throughout all of these years that are still going to engage an audience despite it being written many, many years ago, like that will still engage an audience and keep them laughing and keep them involved. Yeah, I think it's a really great choice.
Right, and her story is a love story, as classic. It's a classic love story where she and the man that she is engaged to are maybe they come from different families, and her character's concern is that the families won't get along, that the families will not like each other. One family is kind of crazy and wacky and individualistic, and the other is more conservative. The father works on Wall Street, and she envisions just disaster happening when the two families will meet. So and that might happen in the
Who knows?
But that love story, I think, is classic.
Yeah.
So, you know, what's always fascinating is how you take on a character.
Yes.
Do you become the person?
Well, something I really enjoy about our rehearsal process is we tend to do a lot of like improv games and like character work just to really like delve into like who your character is. Like we're required to do a character like background sheet where you fill out like what's your character's like favorite hobby, pet peeve, all these things that like aren't necessarily in the show but help you get into the mindset of who you are, because you have to convincingly portray that you are a different person. So a different person has memories and a backstory and hobbies and likes and dislikes. So something on my own time and a lot of the other actors do on their own time is just figure all that
You know,
out.
it's interesting when you say that, a different person. Actually, you define the person to some extent. I mean,
To some extent.
if I were to see that done in another high school in another community, whoever takes the lead would define it differently.
I agree.
Do you feel that when you are even practicing at home?
Well, there's some choices as an actress you're able to make in terms of, oh, like with this scene, am I going to be more lighthearted? Who am I going to choose to interact with the most during the scene? But yeah, I think it's really interesting being able to bring some of like my own personality traits into this character, and like the difference between like people who have played Alice other than me. I think that it's all correct and it's all beautiful in the way that different people choose to portray different characters.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you see it?
I see it throughout all the actors and actresses, that their actual personalities that they have like in school with their friends, a lot of that gets portrayed in their actor as well, as long as trying to incorporate what they are trying to portray in the show.
Oh, then interesting, because you said, right, in other words, you do define the role to some extent. I mean, your personality is going to come out in that role somehow, and vice versa, I assume. It does consume your personality a little bit as well.
It does. Yeah, it does.
Right. Not so easy. So tell me a little bit about the work that goes into being a stage manager.
Well, the stage manager's in charge of the entire production for the most part, and it's there's all the different management teams. So for this show, it's a very prop-heavy show. So we have a props team, we have a props manager, and that they're trying to get everything done to the best that they can do to get the show going as well, along with the carpenters and the master carpenters, building the entire set, because the entire set gets built in a matter of 6 to 8 weeks before the show, and all the decisions for the set goes through the set designer, the director, the producer, and everyone just trying to work together, trying to get this, I guess, production accomplished, as well as there's also sound effects, so I'm managing all the sound effects with the sound designer and trying to make sure that they can accomplish what they need to accomplish on the time.
You give the impression of being this very mild-mannered reporter. But I'm telling you, I know what stage managers, not an easy task. You need to take control, right?
Yes.
So people need to, you're in charge, basically, on getting things, it's all about timing. I mean, if a chair is supposed to be on stage, it better be there.
That's right.
Yes.
Right? So how do you crack that whip?
It's kind of a hard thing for me to do. I'm a very, I guess, soft-spoken person in general, and it pushed me outside of my comfort zone a little bit, but it's a lot of, I guess, fun, and it's a good experience for me to take and be a more stern person and trying to, everything needs to occur when it needs to occur. It can't be late, it can't be wrong, it needs to happen once, and it needs to happen right, and just trying to make sure that everyone knows what they need to do. That's the biggest part of making sure it happens correctly.
I think his mild manner works for him, because then when he does raise his voice, everyone listens.
Everyone listens, that's right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what you don't realize is how you've got to know every line.
Yes.
You have to know where, every mic that's going to, and we don't realize that the soundboard, every mic is not on all the time.
Well, so in the truth be told, in the fall play, the students are not mic'd. And that is, we rely on them to learn projection, because they absolutely are capable. So that has been something Chris has been sitting in the back of the auditorium yelling louder.
Louder,
Almost
project.
Every day. Every day.
You know what's so interesting about that? You're right. I mean, we sometimes lose sight of projection and how it worked in some of the early theater, for the Greek theater, or even Shakespeare's time.
That's right.
How projection and how they modulated their voices in order to make sure that it could be heard in the video. Do you feel that when you?
Well.
How do you do to temper your voice?
Projection for me has always been.
Without screaming.
Yeah. Projection for me has always been a little bit of a struggle. Just the other day we went around and we said like 2 things we really want to work on before we open, and one of mine was definitely projection. Because the hard part about it is wanting to sound natural. And it's hard to go against your instinct of, if you're doing like a more intimate scene, to speak softly when you have to make sure everybody hears you. So I think that's a challenging part about projection, just making sure it comes off naturally.
Do you do a lot of breathing exercises? And how do you teach projection?
Well,
It's not easy.
Yeah, it's not, and it does link to some of the things that you learn in vocal
Yes.
classes in terms of breath control and using the diaphragm to support it, and not speaking from the throat, where you're not supposed to feel it in your throat. If you're doing it correctly, you
Right.
you shouldn't
where you
feel
feel
any
it, right.
pain at all. So we have talked about that, the different, to support it down here. And you'll see that some of the actors naturally have that, and for the others, it really is it's a muscle that they have to work on till it becomes natural, till it becomes second nature. Opera singers are still in many places, right? They don't use microphones, so we all have the tools to do it.
We were built
Yes.
to project.
Yes. So.
Right. But it's a lost art to some extent.
I agree. And kids think they're relying on mics. In a musical, you need to rely on the mic because you've got 30-piece orchestra to compete with, and you can't possibly. But in a play, you don't have to compete with that, except for there is a xylophone on stage that you have to compete with, but that's about it.
Yeah. So did you have fun?
Did I have fun? I did and still am having a lot of fun. This cast has been so tight-knit and supportive of each other, and virtually no conflicts have ensued at all. And it's just been such a fun show.
I heard that.
I knocked on.
No, just the lightheartedness of the show, and I honestly credit to Chris for having, and I remember having such a good, fluid and productive rehearsal process. One of the most productive, I feel like, so far that I've experienced, and it's just been so much fun, and I'm really excited for it to open. happy to see it.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, you're actually doing something which is going to make people's lives different. Isn't that amazing? I mean, every little experience like this is a remarkable, because when you're in the audience, you want to live it. You want to feel like you're on the stage. That's not easy to do. Do you get a sense of yourself like that when you're on the stage?
Yeah, and I see what you mean about how it like impacts your everyday life. Like, just one of the overall themes of the show is just do what you love and just do what makes you happy. And like I feel like that's something each member of the cast is beginning to bring into their own lives. Like, let's not stress out. Do what makes you happy and do what you love, and everything's gonna be okay. And I feel like that's really important as like high school students, and I feel like we're all really just feeling that happy message.
You know, it does my heart so to hear you speak like that.
Oh, thank you.
Because, you know, it's really what we are about. And the human experience as you grow into adulthood has its roots in connections that you make. And in this case, on the stage, whether it's with him or the other actors on the stage, or with your teacher, what we're able to connect to. So I smell something really good in this production. So I think we're on to something this time. So if you don't mind, we're running out of time. I know it's posted on the wall outside of the building right now, the days and times, but if you would just, when is the play, what time, and where?
Thank you. The play is November 13th, 14th, 15th, and 16th. That's next Wednesday through Saturday at 7:30 p.m. Tickets can be bought at the door or hopefully during lunch periods, but they'll definitely be also be able to be purchased at the door. So if you don't get them in advance, come on by and they'll be a
Say
seat
it
for
again,
you.
Wednesday, Thursday,
Friday, Saturday, 7:30 p.m. in the
in
auditorium.
the auditorium here at Southside High School.
Yes.
Yeah, so we really look forward to it. Again, I really thank you very much for being here. Look forward to seeing it. And as always, ma'am, thank you so much.
Thank
You know, being a teacher is all about connections. And just in this short time that we've had an opportunity to talk, I see it so much in what you've been able to put together. So thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you next week. Reminder, 13, 14, 15, and 16, 7:30 here at Southside. Thanks again for joining us. I hope you look forward, as much as I do, to seeing these superstars on our stage next week. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you next time. Bye now.